when I met Cliff, I actually ended up jamming with Cliff and Jimmy up at Jimmy's house on East Avenue in Hayward. I think it was East Avenue where the Martins lived.
Where'd you grow up?
Where did I
Hayward?
grow up?
Cache Valley?
Well, I grew up in Hayward.
Okay, where at?
Hayward, 2 Street.
2nd Street.
Hayward, California.
2nd Street.
94542.
Ah.
Jimmy created some awesome music with Mike and Faith No More
Yeah.
too.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
To have those two legendary bands coming from the East Bay, or even Castro Valley specifically, like
right.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can't discount that because they did something completely different than Metallica, and it completely took off in a different direction, but still ended up in the same place.
Hayward used to be across the street. There were kind of fields and houses, and then they built Hayward High School.
Okay.
So that's where I grew up.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What brought you to Cache Valley? Cool people
Well,
there,
you know,
cool parties?
no, it was Hayward, Castro Valley. It was almost like
Same thing.
Twin Cities.
Okay.
Hayward, Castro Valley, Hayward. They mixed in.
I had a van at the time, and we'd throw our equipment in the back of the van and head out looking for the parties. And
just crash the parties with the gear.
guitars, and then actually when we started playing with Cliff, we still did a few parties where we ended up showing up and just jamming on some UFO and stuff like that. And then Jimmy Schaefer, who was a drummer, he would jam with us. And then I think a few times Mike showed up at a couple parties, and he would jump on the drum set. I don't know.
Oh, nice.
He could probably correct me if I'm wrong because he'll be talking to him. But we were that community was so close knit. We all knew each other, and all kind of hung out here and there. All saw each other. Because some people like Mike. Mike was always at a lot of those parties too. But that was fun. I mean, it's something you're never going to see again. I don't think. Nothing like it was back then.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I heard there's another place. I don't know if you heard of Judd's Barn.
Oh yeah.
I heard. Was it you told me he still owns the property, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had to put a barn back up and just start inviting people over again. A bunch of us old guys walking up the road with walkers and stuff.
Still rocking and rolling.
Yeah, carrying our guitars on our backs, like I'll get up there sooner or later.
Yeah.
And then in 1980 is when I had seen Cliff. I jammed with him at a couple parties, but the famous one where we finally decided to ask him to join the band was it was in an apartment complex, and it was I think it was somebody's grandmother's birthday party. And of course, the grandmother's birthday party included inviting everybody from Castro Valley over. So Cliff was jamming. We ended up playing a couple songs with him. And after that, I said, hey, he's a great bass player, man. We got to get him in our band. And I think he was playing with Easy Street at the time.
How did you meet Cliff?
Through Jim.
Okay.
He was playing in bands with him.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Easy Street. Spastic Children was later.
Yeah.
But they would play around in the area.
They play like the talent show.
They try to get in the Easy Street. Try to get in the Battle of Bands every year.
Yeah.
I think they got in one year, but they usually were not in the finals. Zip. So you had Jim Martin, Faith No More, and you had Cliff Burton of Metallica.
Yeah.
And they didn't make the cut.
Or was kind of. But so we asked him to join. He said, well, I still got to do the Battle of the Bands with, he still did it with Jimmy Martin and Donato, the drummer, and I can't remember the other guitar player, but they did the Battle of the Bands, and that's the video that you see out there with them doing that song. I was there, and actually it blew everybody's mind what they were playing. because they were just kind of the music was so far ahead than everybody there, and it was just Cliff playing that distorted bass. Everybody was all like, "Whoa, what's this?" But he had promised to do that show, and then we could start getting together in my parents' garage after that. So that was about 1980.
Oh wow.
But Davis and the Raiders instilled in the East Bay the will to win. Okay, and it is in that environment that Cliff Burton and entered, and the rest of us, entered into that time. So a lot of formative years were spent in that environment. Now,
And a lot of things you've heard about. One thing about us is we would practice a song until it was perfect, and that was one thing Cliff was very adamant about. Is we're not going to just like half-ass it. It's going to be tight. It's going to be perfect. We all were on the same page with that. So I drove my parents crazy with the same song over and over again for hours on end. Uh, so as we started, we played the. You've seen the pictures of the Hayward Plunge show. That was our first big show.
Oh, okay.
That was the first time the five of us really knew we had something kind of special.
we used to sit around my house and record stuff, right? Not sometimes music, but other times narratives or stories or limericks or a lot of things. Okay, and but we always would kind of start things off by listening to "Ecstasy of Gold." You know what "Ecstasy of Gold" is, right?
Yep.
It's the intro song from Metallica. Well, I remember we used to listen to it all the time. And then Cliff goes off, he played some other band and some other thing, and he goes there and he hooks it with Metallica, and the first thing he said, he goes, "Guess what our intro song is?" I go, "No, what?" He puts it on. I go, "Well, cool. Welcome to the show."
Yeah.
Good, come on in. That's when the Big Riggers Association was born.
Okay.
So by our manager promoting a lot of shows at the Keystones, getting us in there, eventually within a year we were headlining the Keystone Berkeley and at the Stone too. So, but he was good. He talked a lot. He did a lot of good for the band. Of course, we didn't agree with everything he did, but because he tried to put us in uniforms, and with Cliff, uniforms didn't work with Cliff.
He's like, unless you guys are all wearing denim, I'm not wearing a uniform.
Yeah, well, he got to wear black denim and a black shirt at one time.
That's what you got out of still denim.
Yeah, where I was wearing red spandex and a leather vest.
Was it the manager that kind of promoted that hair metal look that you guys had?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're on record here saying it wasn't you guys. It was the manager.
He kept saying, "Don't worry, I'm going to sell you guys. You got to have the look."
It makes sense. That's the look that was going on at that time.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Okay.
And I don't know if you know about the Big Riggers Association.
I know that you guys gathered together and had intellectual conversations in front of cameras.
Yeah, pretty much. And we would spell it RIGORS.
Okay. Rigors of life. And not
Yeah,
rigors
you see, that's why you're so in tune, because that's exactly what we said. It's the rigors of life.
Yeah.
And the philosophy was, unless you get on top of that wave and you write it down, it will wash you onto the shore.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
If you don't live life, it will live you.
Yeah.
And that was really those kinds of things. And we used to like to talk tough, and we'd call it the talk. We actually have a little episode, me, Dave, Cliff, and Jim, called the Tough Talkers of America.
Okay.
Because we like to talk real tough.
Yeah. So doing like a talk show type thing.
But no, I've got the lost tapes.
I was curious, who had a camera in the 80s?
Well, that was when
Early
video
80s.
cameras came out, but also we would just record.
Audio?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I had reel-to-reel, click it
Okay.
on, and just let it roll for hours.
Now, was this something you did in the Bear or just Maxwell?
No, Maxwell was just pretty. Well, we did some in Maxwell, but
But
no, it was in the Castro Valley. It was at my house in Castro Valley.
Good. Okay.
See, and it's like Cliff had the ducks back. You couldn't say anything to Cliff about. It's like, you you see him with the middle finger up a lot of times, in his pictures, and
Oh yeah.
it's not condescending. It's just like, that's who I am. If you don't like it, tough,
Yeah.
And I know Mike's talked about that a lot in the last interviews too. He just was that type of guy where it rolled right off his back. You're
Mhm.
gonna, and I learned some of that from him. Just don't let the people, whatever their comments are, who cares,
Nothing phased him.
Yeah, you go out and do your thing, and you do it great. You do it good, and you enjoy the music you're playing. Who's going to stop you?
Yeah.
Uh,
Did you ever hear out on the street anybody criticizing Cliff's playing since it was so different?
It was completely different, Cliff, it's really interesting because Cliff obviously played, kind of a jazz style, but not jazz. It was heavy metal rock,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But he played it in a style like that, the way he
in his
own style with the way he did things,
Mm-hmm.
And he played his bass like a lead, and so unfettered from the structures, whatever it was, Metallica or otherwise, when he was in other bands, when he was up there just jamming, I mean, he was the lead guitar. You could do whatever you want, especially when he played with Jim. They had a real good feel for each other, Jim and Cliff.
Yeah.
It's too bad they never were in the same thing at the same time.
It would be so cool.
It would have been
and
good.
if you listen to some of the stuff he's doing on a basic song, like Going Off or Such a Shame, he just does these little things in there that are just, that's where the term, Connie and I argue or fight over this, but the lead bass thing, that's really what I liked about his bass playing, is he provided freedom for me as a rhythm guitar player to just kick back.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to do a lot of the work. He did it. And
Yeah, he's like, I'll take the leads, no worries.
Yep. And actually, that's what I was about in the songs that I wrote for Trauma, is I wanted him to put his part on it every time, and he did. He did.
But Cliff, so Jim understood how to let Cliff lead. Now, as a lead guitarist, allowing the bass to lead, and played off his lead. So some of the tapes, the lost tapes, not many will ever hear, are there's a lot of that on it. Is it groundbreaking or something? Everything, I guess, after a while it becomes groundbreaking again, right?
Yeah.
There's only so many chords. There's so many ways you can play them, and it kind of cycle through. But it was freeform, and it was fun because what we would do, they played the strings, the instruments. Dave was the drum, and I bring up a keyboard, but I also played what we developed and called the pipe drums, and those were old 55-gallon oil barrels, metal ones.
Very cool.
And we would hit them with sticks, and then it was. So we had that whole element going up there, and it fed Cliff a lot. I mean, that's why Cliff plugged in up there all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, constantly.
It's like when we played the Whiskey, and James and Lars walked in thinking it was a guitar that was up there playing.
Yeah.
And it was Cliff playing the bass. Well, that was the part. I mean, he added that part to each song that I ever wrote.
Nice.
It just was different, and
Mm-hmm.
I knew it. Everybody else knew it, and so did Metallica know it. And I'm sorry, Dave Mustaine, but I'm not hurt that they poached him from me. So,
So when he gets back from tour, that was always top of his agenda.
First thing up.
First thing up.
Very Besides giving mom and dad a hug and a kiss, patting the dog and saying hello to everybody. Mm-hmm. But as soon as he made his hellos, he said, "I'll be back."
Oh, that was the Barry. He always thought about what are those people thinking about our band? What it's like when Cliff came into the fold. It was like, the heck with them.
Who cares? Yeah,
who cares? And a couple of the guys still felt that way, and I started to learn that. Because I was always concerned how I looked and how I played, and but I got to learn that just do it and just go free. And you know, I noticed that, in Metallica, there was no, you didn't get to stand next to each other. Cliff and I shared the stage together.
Mhm.
His bass amp was right next to my Marshall stack. I had those two 18-inch speakers blaring at me if I go a little bit to the right, closer to the drums. Uh,
Yeah.
but you know what? It flowed right in. I love the bass because the bass goes into your gut,
Oh
and,
yeah.
and it just he had to have those 18-inch speakers.
Really, I really connected with Cliff was really on his off time from tour.
Mm.
That's when we went to the ranch. That's when we hung out.
Mm.
I mean, that's what he would do.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd get off the tour and he would just come home. He was in that way. That's what he did.
Mm.
He was that type, and got off the road and just come and hang. And we'd go up to the ranch, and we'd basically get up there, and we'd jam all night, sleep all day, because it was so hot. We'd go up in the summer long.
I see.
So hot in the day.
Can't
I mean,
do that
everything
without
sleeps
yeah.
in the middle of the day. It's too hot.
Yeah.
And then fire up the gear. At night, we put generators
There's
up
a
there.
generator.
Yeah, and play all night long.
But that's who he was. Just a simple guy with an intricate mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple outward. Everybody would think that that who's this hippie dude. But inside that mind of his is some music that
Mhm.
is way out there, so far bizarre. I mean, the stuff that he used to do at the ranch.
Mhm.
Um, I think I heard a story of James going out to the ranch one time, and he's driving into the canyon, and he heard this like bass solo coming out the hills, and it was just like, just blown away by all the notes that this guy was playing.
Mhm.
And but that was Cliff. He had just amazing musical mind, that to this, I mean, even all this past still blows my mind. Some of the things he used to, yeah, some of the things he used to play, like practicing to Bach and Beethoven, putting on the album and then playing his bass to that music.
Mhm.
So gave me to listen to classical music to this day. I learned to kind of appreciate what he was talking about and the intricacies of listening to it. Back then as a kid, classical music's like, it's so boring. But
Yeah.
if you listen to the musicianship, that's what Cliff was listening to. He was
Mhm.
listening to all the little parts, every little part that comes together, and
Mhm.
and he was bringing that to Trauma before he left.
Nice.
And I think he got frustrated because he wasn't being able to bring enough of that.
Mhm.
But when he got to Metallica, he was able to bring all of
What
that.
kind of stuff did you guys do around town?
Again, that was I met him post grammar school, high school, and everything else.
Trauma days?
Yeah, I remember him in Trauma,
Okay.
but post all that.
So, yeah, 19,
And so
20-year-old
we were all doing our thing,
Yeah.
So, well, we would go up to Maxwell, and so Cliff, you always see him with a bass in his hand. He's always with a guitar in his hand. And the only other thing he looked really good in was when he had a shotgun in his hand. Okay,
Hey.
so we take him up there to the ranch, and he had a shotgun in his hand. And then we come to my place. We go to shows or something else, but we pretty much just, hung out around in that Castro Valley area, and at least with me, and up at the ranch and that sort of thing. We really, we went to the shows, a number of shows, but we didn't go roller skating or bowling.
Yeah. Any cruising on the boulevard kind of thing?
Not really.
No?
Oh no, although no, I shouldn't say that. One night when video cameras first came out, I had a convertible, and we went down in the heart of Oakland with the video camera, and we got people to dance for us. We told them we were from MTV, and I still have that tape. It was precious. Everybody loved us, and everybody danced for us in Oakland. And Cliff was the cameraman. I was the driver.
Like, woo!
No, it was hot. It was cool, and it was a hot night. But oh man, everybody we asked, we're MTV. You want to do a little? And they would just, yeah. Oakland's a good town.
That's so.
But yeah, so we did that. We do that kind of cruising, yeah. But as far as like cruising on, no, no. We didn't do that. We did big rigor things like cruising Oakland with a video camera with MTV. That we did, yeah. That we did. That was pretty good. I hadn't thought about that. God, you reminded me.
Nice. What about
And this was a short time. I mean, this was
It's a short time, yeah.
This was a whole life in like 4 years.
4 years, yeah.
Trauma went from nothing to pretty much on top of our game in the Bay Area within a short time. Unfortunately, the manager started going off the deep end and starting getting mad that record companies weren't signing us, and but we weren't worried about that. We were more worried about perfecting our music and writing more songs and just preparing ourselves to get to that point. But he was all into trying to sell us, and trying to sell us as a package of something that we weren't. Of course, I should have looked for that picture of Cliff in the black bell bottoms and a black shirt with his cross necklace.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I show you that first promo shot of us standing in an alleyway in San Francisco. He had that on there.
Oh, nice.
But he wore that's what he wore in the video for that LA video too.
Okay.
But that's that's the most uniform we could get out
Yeah.
of it.
You're like black. All right, but it's gonna be denim.
Yep. That's my my jean jacket, my Levi bell bottoms, and
Oh, it's your jacket.
my jean jacket and my Blue Oyster Cult shirt or my Leonard Skinner shirt. So I think he only had like 4 T-shirts and but they were Leonard Skinner, Blue Oyster Cult. I think that was the 2 main ones I always saw him in.
I was just glad, and I'm honored that I was able to see all of this.
Yeah.
To be able to sit in front of this and talk to you about it.
Yeah.
Come on. Who gets that chance?
Yeah.
Not too many. I appreciate it.
That was the whole point of what we put together with Trauma was each person putting in their part to each song that I wrote, and and you hear it, and I know sometimes it was frustrating, Cliff, when we were playing and it was too simple, or and we get like, oh man, you can't add all that in there, it's just too much, but we're when he left, it was we were both kind of like, I like more of the heavier stuff. I was starting to listen to more of the heavier stuff like Cliff was. The other guys were more Van Halen, and that's not to downgrade them at all. It's just that's what they wanted to play.
We would talk about that a lot. That was a lot of our conversations, actually. On and off camera. There's some funny things on camera about these things. Right after the big riggers that was on the Metallica Cliff 'em All thing. But I think that Cliff is, it's interesting to me because he did 3 albums. As you said, I think it was 83 to
86.
86. He that was just as they were going like this, and there was a lot of guys in a lot of bands that something happened to them around that time in their trajectory, and I can't name one of them. But Cliff's energy, Cliff's legend. I mean, hell, it's all at me to a minor folk figure. Go figure that, right?
How did he break the news to you that he was going to have to depart from the band?
He talked about it. I had a feeling because when we were in LA, we did that video live, music-wise. And they messed up the tape, and they messed up the recording of the tape, and it got all. So we ended up going to a studio the next night, well, there's a guy, I'm trying to think of his name, Pat, that was friends with Tony, that was friends with James and Lars. And James and Lars came to the studio that night. And while we were re-recording the music for that video, they talked to Cliff, and I was like, man, that's the second time I've seen those guys talking to him. You know,
So you remember them from the gig when they?
yeah, I remember
Okay.
from the whiskey, and I'm pretty much sure they're probably at the Troubadour because we sold the Troubadour out that night because you know, Cliff was destined to do what he was going to do,
Yeah.
and you don't stop that, you know,
Mhm.
and you don't sit there and cry in your own milk about it either.
Yeah.
We were friends, and you know, friends don't get upset or lose a relationship when somebody wants to do something like Cliff did. And
Yeah.
after it took me a couple shows to finally catch on with what they were doing musically.
That's cool.
You
And
know,
then you said 3 to 4 years too. I mean, that's the same duration that he was in Metallica. So it's like
Yeah.
Trauma was such a big part of Cliff too. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
we all know him from coming from Trauma. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah. And there was a couple years there when those guys headed off to New York and basically made their base operations back there, where we just get a phone call once in a while from Cliff and tell us what he was up to and how he's living on bologna and vodka. You know, because they're making $50 a show or something like that. And just make sure that they're staying comfortable. But they gave up a lot to go back there. And and once he came back, once they settled back in the Bay Area again, then we, you know, you reconnect and start doing things. One thing Cliff and I like to take Cliff fishing.
Where would you guys go fishing? Like, I was gonna say Lake Chabot.
Yeah, Lake Chabot, somewhere
Nice.
close. You know.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the last big rigor conversation with the whole thing was there. We were at the ranch. It was just the day before he left on the fateful tour.
You know, but he would always make sure he check in with everybody else. He wasn't one to just to drop you off to the side. I'm a rock star now, so I don't talk to you anymore. You know.
Yeah.
He never had that persona. I mean, we rehearsed Trauma and Metallica were in the same rehearsal studios. And Cliff would always be hanging out, checking out the other bands that were rehearsing there. And he would always come by our rehearsal. And then him and Donnie and I would, if Donnie could make it, then it was just him and I go hang out. We go over somewhere, grab a couple beers. We used to love to go to Tony and Ted's over in Castro Valley. Do you ever remember that? They had
Oh yeah, Tony and Ted's definitely.
The whole back wall was imports
Ah.
from all over the world. And we had this thing in Trauma where, you know, after a rehearsal or something, we'd go to Tony and Ted's and pick two. You pick two different imports each time. And then Cliff loved Tsingtao.
Castro Valley, East Bay, in that era, there was a moment. And from this, we got Cliff Burton. We got the Cliff Burton Day. We got Metallica. And I won't say, look, Metallica was there before it came to Cliff, so it wasn't Cliff created Metallica. He might have made them. He didn't create them. He made them. Okay.
No, that was a good time. It was a very good time, and sharing it with people like Cliff and you know, Mike Gordon and George Tiger Lady, and you know, just having fun. Those are memories that I keep with me, you know, forever. And just being a part of that is just, you know, just people, you know, let's go out and enjoy it. You know, it's too serious out there nowadays.
It's a mindset. Came out of the East Bay because of a lot of that. This is another example of it. It was a moment. You know, and I just feel privileged to recognize that moment and what we were in. And that's what a guy's got to do. If you could stop and you can look and you can recognize you're in that moment, the world changes. It's oftentimes later on you go back and go, I didn't realize how many times you didn't see it. It just blew past you. Your dreams blow past you. Wait a second. That's what the big rigors were about. That's exactly what Cliff was about. Wait a second. You know? Watch it. And then savor the moment. When you get a good one, savor it. Savor it as long as you can because it's going away.
Instantly.
And the next shit thing's going to happen to you.
Mhm.
And it may not be so good. Usually isn't.
It's a part of all of us. Yeah, when you have somebody like Cliff, it all becomes a little piece of him becomes a part of you.
Mhm.
Because that's who he was. When you're friends with him, you were friends with him for life. You know.
Mhm.
Would he have grown in the legend that he has now, having a day after him and all of this, if he was still an active musician? Maybe not. I don't know.
Things would have been different.
Would there be an interview like this? Would there be any interviews? Would there be this museum? Would there be anything if he was still active? I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
These are things that when you look at, you go, wow. And he's sticking around. He's watching us.
Cliff didn't gravitate to all the hey, we'll do lunch attitude. Ray was telling me that there's a kid in a wheelchair and just kind of sitting there by himself and backstage. No, don't know how he got backstage, but Cliff went over and sat there and introduced himself and spent a bunch of time with this kid in the wheelchair because he was by himself. He was alone and he was different. And that's, Cliff was different, probably pretty much everybody would look at Cliff and go, who's that dude? If nowadays they probably look at him in bell-bottom pants with a jean jacket, and so who's that dude? Well, you don't know who you're talking about. He had that happen to him a lot too.
Oh yeah,
in Metallica, he'd go and step outside to grab a smoke or something like that, or he could probably chat with somebody, because that's how he's very personable. But he would always look for that person that Ray was telling me when he got there. It was always talk to those people that were kind of being ignored. And would go over and make sure he spent time with them. And even if they're handicapped or not, it was just that, allow lonely people sitting in the corner. Cliff would never let you be lonely and sit in the corner. Come join the crowd. Come join us, come hang with us. And, but that's what Ray was really give me a couple stories about how he did that backstage. And I said, well, Ray, that was Cliff. He wanted you all to be part of you're all part of this. You're backstage here hanging with us, hang with us. Sit and have a beer. Let's have a chat, or let's burn a fatty.
Definitely Cliff right there.
But otherwise, you use it in a balanced approach, and that's how Cliff did it. He tapped into that in a very balanced approach. And if you look at him and the way he played, he would connect to that, whatever it was he connected to, without losing his grounding in the 3D world, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely, because he reached a certain level where he could have changed completely. He could have been rock star dude, but he stayed grounded, and he acknowledged what he was creating in his own mind to be where he was.
Yeah, and that's why it keeps hitting me over and over. He exited stage left. Click at the right minute.
That's true.
To remain with the integrity, to remain with that spirit, to maintain that energy.
And Cliff, you can tell with Cliff, it was spirit. It was deep inside. There was nothing going to take it away from him. And with spirit, you can't take that away from you. You can try to break your spirit down, but you still can't take it away. And that's it's a really great thing about how we're created. And man, such a special guy,
He's my hero to do that way. Too young, I get it. We didn't want him to go for sure. Had a better, all of that.
That's not my problem.
But God damn it, was it not the right moment for the legend to grow? The legacy to live. I don't know who could leave a legacy like this, based on 3 albums. I just don't know. I don't know. I can't give you another example of such a thing, and it doesn't shrink. What the fuck?
It
It
doesn't
doesn't
shrink. It
shrink.
only got
I mean,
bigger.
you're
It's
here
only
talking to
bigger.
me. Like, you need to talk to me? Like, I got something to say? Come on. Bullshit. Come on. It's because of Cliff. I mean, goddamn. And because of that, I have thought about this whole thing a lot.
You'll always have that connection. He was not only in your band and your buddy, he was also your stage guy, your stage right,
mate.
right? Yep,
Yep.
right. That's so cool. And the best way to keep someone alive who has passed on is to talk about them and keep their memory alive. So
Oh yeah.
I think what we've been doing
I really
for 6 years.
I'll be honest, I really appreciate you, Nick. Thank you for even asking me. I always look at myself as who am I. I kind of try not to be prideful about things, but in another sense, we were at the forefront of this whole thing. And if it wasn't for some of the decisions I made, and that's not being like bragging or anything, the decisions George and I made trying to put a band together. Hey, let's go to this party in Castro Valley. Uh, and being a believer in God, I think it just he moved us in that way. He brought us to
totally.
Cliff. He brought us to Cliff at that party in Castro Valley, kind of the Castro Valley Hayward border. Who throws a kegger party for their grandmother's birthday? I mean, come on, man, that's Castro Valley.
That's true.
And who has a live band for their grandmother's birthday
Yeah.
party out in the back? And who's we're jamming on Rock Bottom with Cliff back there with Jim Schaefer, Tiger, myself, Cliff doing Rock Bottom, and then I think we did Rock Candy or something. We did a bunch of covers that day, but it was just like, man, you're so cool, dude. You're so cool.
Let's be buddies, dude.
Yep.
Come on, let's go. You helped influence his life. And then beyond that, the last 4 years, look what his life influenced on the whole world. So that's cool. I love that the universe, God, whatever brought you guys together. And that's the story right there. That's very cool.
Yeah. And everybody else that was involved. I mean, Mike got to go to school with, Mike Borden got to go to school and grow up with him. Mike saw the first day he decided to play bass. How amazing is that? He's a witness from the beginning.
And I think that's why Cliff's close by. He always has been. He has not left yet.